So, hello everyone, good morning. Today we are going to be talking about a very interesting topic, and I am so very happy today because fact is that today, even if I'm not talking about cryptocurrency, a lot of people say, man of God, I want you to talk about cryptocurrency, but we are not talking about cryptocurrency today. Today we are talking about a health issue. Okay, so there's a health issue that a lot of people are experiencing, and I decide to, okay, let me look into this matter. And before we go into that, I'll just quickly introduce myself. I'm Pastor Joshua by name, and I am very happy to talk to you today. I believe this is the wisdom from God that will help a lot of people. Okay, so we want to help a lot of people with an health issue that has to do with high blood pressure. Okay, so some people are like, high blood pressure, man of God, why are you talking about high blood pressure? Why? What do you got to say about high blood pressure? You see, we have quite a lot to say about high blood pressure, which is also known as hypertension. Okay, high blood pressure is also known as hypertension for some people who are not aware of this. Now, let's dive into the matter. What is high blood pressure? And I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty of this high blood pressure thing, but I'm going to give you a wisdom. Okay, something that will guide you, something that will help you. You see, the medical people, or maybe generally people, define high blood pressure for once. As a scientist or a physicist, I might define, I might say, okay, high blood pressure is when some people will say, okay, let me use a definition like this, something very simple. Some people will say when the blood exerts a force on the arteries. Okay, now let's rewind that back. Why are we talking about arteries? Now, there are several blood vessels. Okay, the arteries, there is something called the arteries, and there's something called the veins. Okay, the arteries carry blood away from the heart, and the veins carry blood to the heart. Now, when the heart begins to, the arteries have muscles in them. Arteries have muscles in them, but veins do not have muscles in them. You see, that's why God is very intelligent, because He added muscles. There's a reason why muscles are attached to the arteries. The arteries are connected to the heart. Okay, when you check, they say there are four ventricles or arteries that pump blood away from the heart. Okay, we'll come to that in another segment. Why we have four? There's something spiritual there. Now, why do the arteries have muscles with them? The veins do not have muscles with them. Okay, it is because the muscles help the muscles help the heart to pump and regulate the flow of blood from the heart. Now, if we have muscles with the arteries, those muscles help the arteries to contract and expand. Okay, they contract, they expand. So when they contract, there is more pressure, blood is being pumped out. When they are relaxed, blood is not much pumped out, like the doctors will see. So those muscles help, like a hose. If you've ever used the hose, maybe probably when you go to car wash, or you're trying to wash your car, or you're trying to pump something, if you have a hose and you connect it to a source or to a pump, and you take that hose, for example, when you squeeze the hose, listen to me carefully now, follow me here. When you squeeze the hose, you find out that you reduce the area where water is flowing from. You reduce that area, and there is more pressure now on the hose, causing the rate at which water is flowing through the hose to be faster, right? So the same thing happens to the arteries, that when the muscles squeeze on the arteries, there is pressure. Now, there is much pressure, blood begins to flow faster, because why? The muscles is causing the arteries to exert a force, on the flow of the blood, just like the way you squeeze the hose, and the water begins to flow faster with much force, right? Because you are exerting force. Remember Newton's third law of motion: for every force you apply, there is an equal and opposite reaction, right? So the muscle help the arteries to do this task, and also help the heart to do this task. Okay, now when we have an issue of high blood pressure, it means there is much pressure exerted. Now, is it the blood that is exerting pressure on the arteries, or is the arteries that is exerting pressure on the blood? Okay, now there's a scenario where the arteries is exerting force on this flow of blood. Now you must understand how these arteries and muscles, these arteries that have muscles attached to them, how they function. Now, if these guys contract and there is high flow of blood, there is a point where they have to relax. Okay, they contract, they relax. Now, when we have an issue where these muscles contract and they are not able to relax, now you don't have force being exerted, you have pressure being exerted. Now you have a condition now, because when these guys cannot relax anymore, you have a condition where we say there is a high blood pressure. Now, what causes these guys to contract and not relax? Why are these muscles contract and they are not relaxing? Okay, a simple condition is simply magnesium deficiency. You are not going to believe this. Magnesium deficiency. Do you know that magnesium deficiency is what causes the arteries that have muscles in them to contract and they don't relax? You see, because magnesium helps the function of muscles. Okay, it helps muscles function. So when we have a deficiency of magnesium, now most people suffer from high blood pressure because they don't even know what they are experiencing. Some people think maybe is there a lot of, maybe they have issues like some doctors will say, or some hospital will say, when they check, these guys have to do a lot of tests. They now conduct a lot of tests and say, okay, go for a test, and they find out that they come up with something very simple. They say there is high sodium in the body. Okay, they say cut down your intake of salt. Cut down your intake of salt for you not to experience high blood pressure. Reduce your intake of salt. For one, I would say that is not really true. That is not really true, because I'll tell you why that is not really true. Because they told a lot of people to reduce their intake of salt, and when these guys reduce their intake of salt, they have another problem again. They have another problem entirely. And what is the problem they have? Even when they reduce their intake of salt, they find out that it's still not working. Come on, it's still not working, because you know why? Why it's not working? Because when they reduce their intake of salt, something happens when they reduce their intake of salt. I'll tell you what happens when they reduce their intake of salt. When they tell them to reduce, they say because there is high sodium in the body, because they run the test on the ground and they find out that there is high sodium. But why was there high sodium in the blood? Why? Because that high sodium was not there before. They were taking their regular salt. Is it not the same salt that our fathers in the village were taking? These were the same salt that they were taking. They didn't experience high blood pressure. Most of them didn't experience high blood pressure. Now you go to the hospital and they're telling you to reduce your intake of salt. I'll tell you what happens. I'll tell you what happens when things like that happen. Now, when we begin to reduce our intake of salt, it causes something. It begins to make the body become insulin resistant. Now, have you ever noticed that people that suffer from high blood pressure, they tend to move into issues that have to do with diabetes? Now, why is this two related? What is the relationship between diabetes and high blood pressure? Okay, I'll tell you the relationship. Because when you now begin to cut down your intake of salt, the insulin system now begins to see that, okay, there is less intake of salt now. Okay, so what do? We have to, this guy is beginning to take less salt. We have to do something. And so what does the insulin system do? The insulin system begins to retain salt and water in the body. Begins to retain salt and say, okay, since this guy is beginning to reduce the salt, we have to hold much sodium. Are you getting it now? We have to hold much sodium. So the insulin system begins to hold sodium, begins to retain sodium and water, begins to retain it and keep it, because hey, this guy is reducing the intake of sodium. Now begins to reduce the intake of salt. You get it now? So because the insulin system is beginning to retain sodium, the insulin system now begins to work over time. Now understand the mechanism. This is a mechanism. Yeah, I'm taking you on a journey, because you see, for you to understand the human system, you need to meet the one who did the creation. You need to know the master who designed this system. Okay, you need to meet the master, because the master is the one that has the manual. Okay, he has the manual. He designed the system. He understands how all these things work. Okay, he understands the system. So you are going to meet him. He is the one that has the manual. All right. Now back to what we were saying. We said the insulin system now begins to retain more salt, begins to hold more salt, because why? He doesn't want to lose salt. He needs those salts. Now, when they begin to run tests, they find out that there is a spike in sodium in the body. Now, where is that coming from? It is because the insulin system is trying to hold the salt, and because the insulin system is trying to retain salt, to help you retain salt, the insulin system is working over time. And when insulin system begins to work over time, the body now begins to develop insulin resistance, because why? Insulin is working over time. So the body now begins to develop what we call insulin resistance. And when insulin resistance begins to come in, you can have the best bet what follows. Diabetes begins to crawling, you see, because why? The body is developing insulin resistance. The body is not supposed to develop insulin resistance. What caused insulin to work over time? Because of lack of salt. Because of lack of salt. And not just lack of any salt, because you see, sometimes what we consume processed salt, okay, which is just on a chemistry table. We get to see sodium chloride. Okay, sodium chloride is the normal table salt, which is what we find, or what is generally found. Okay, but what I will ask more people to do is that I tell them to get Celtic salt, get sea salt. Sea salt is the natural salt that God designed for us to use, not this processed salt that we are using. Not this processed salt. Telling people not to add salt to their food, not to increase their intake of salt. You are not doing them any good. You are not helping them at all. Instead, they are doing more damage to their body, because why? They now make their insulin to work over time to retain sodium. So they go for a test, they see sodium in their body, they see more build-up of fluid in their body because of the work of the insulin, and they said cut down on your intake of sodium. No, you are not supposed to cut down on your intake of sodium. You are supposed to get a salt that has magnesium in it. Okay, remember the magnesium stuff that we talked about. That magnesium help the muscles, the arteries, okay, to contract, relax. They regulate blood pressure. Okay, so when you are deficient in magnesium, and one of the ways you find magnesium is that in sea salt you find traces of magnesium. But if you want to get very good salt, you find Celtic salt, okay, Epsom salt. They have magnesium, and there is other ways by which you can help your magnesium intake. Okay, You can help your magnesium intake by consuming something like groundnut. Groundnut has a lot of magnesium in it. Groundnut has a lot of magnesium. So you consuming groundnut will help you. Then there's something, there are plants also that has magnesium. There are food that has magnesium. Come on, check for them. There are food that has magnesium. You have to keep magnesium steady in your body when you are advancing. Okay? Because some of these things that we experience, some of these high blood pressure, hypertension that people experience is just simply the body running out of the required elements it's supposed to have. Come on, the body is reducing, the body is losing an amount of salt. The body is reducing, the body is becoming deficient in an amount of a particular compound, a particular element, and that major element is magnesium. Magnesium is a case. Although some other cases, I'm not going into other cases where people do not experience, people lack sleep, alcohol, and all of those stuff that promotes high blood pressure. But I'm just coming to something that is very simple, something that is very basic. That hey, you are lacking magnesium. You are lacking magnesium, and these guys in the lab or in the hospital, they are not seeing this. So they are treating something else. They are chasing after the flame. They are chasing after the fire. No, you don't chase after the fire. You chase the cause of it, because you see, it's not a lifestyle. It's not a lifestyle. You see, because most of the things we experience is just lifestyle. When you begin to adjust your lifestyle, you begin to find out that the body knows how to repair itself. You see, I can tell you that your body was designed. You see, your body was designed to know how to repair itself. Please excuse me, I'll tell you more. See, this matter is very, 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 very complicated, complex, and you see, it's an issue that you have to really look into. Okay. Now, you begin to see something now, that when the body begins to lack magnesium, I came up with something. I said I'm going to show you guys. Okay. Now, do you notice this leaf? There's a leaf. This leaf, you can see it very well. They call it the miracle leaf. And one of the things that this miracle leaf does is that miracle leaf helps people that have high blood pressure. It helps their high blood pressure to reduce. It drops high blood pressure. It's very good with that. I do tell people, if you can eat one of these every day, you are going to be very fine. Just eat one of these every day. Because now, why does this leaf help in high blood pressure? I'll tell you why. Why it helps in high blood pressure. Do you know this leaf contains a lot of antioxidants? It contains a lot of nutrients. Okay, vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E. This leaf contains them. This leaf does a lot of things for the human body. It does a lot of things. So look at it very well. This is called the miracle leaf. This is quite common. Okay. Now, do you know this leaf contains a lot of magnesium? Now you see where magnesium comes in again. Now they are telling them not to take salt, but I'm telling them it is not the consumption of salt that causes your high blood pressure. It's not the consumption of salt that causes your hypertension. No, it is not it. It is just a deficiency of some particular nutrients in your body, of which magnesium is one of the essentials. Magnesium. So they tell you to take a lot of groundnut, because groundnut contains magnesium, or peanut contains magnesium. Come on now. You see? So you see that there's a link between that and developing of insulin resistance. You see? Now you see that it also transcends, and it's going towards diabetes. Are you beginning to see the chain reaction here now? And you see, that is where another compound coming, which is the B2, the vitamin B2 complex. It helps a lot. Vitamin B2 complex helps in the metabolization of carbohydrates. Okay, but there's a link between that metabolization of carbohydrates and magnesium. Oh, it's raining out here now. Okay, so I want you to get this. I want you to get this. Okay, what our advice for you is that change your salt. Change your salt. Don't reduce your intake of salt, but change your salt. Get sea salt. Get Celtic salt. Begin to use that. What makes you think? Now, when you go to the hospital, for example, you see somebody falls into coma, for example. Now, let me shock you now for something. Let me shock you. Okay? Now, when somebody goes into coma, the person has high blood pressure, the person goes into coma, and he goes to the hospital. What is the first thing that they do? They put the person on drip, or probably they put the person on oxygen, and the person is on drip. They connect a drip to the person. They are putting drip on the vein. Now, that drip that they are putting in you, that they are connected directly to your vein, what does the drip contain? It simply contains salt and water. So if it contains salt and water, why are they pumping salt into the body again? Aha, you're not seeing the logic. This is simple 1 plus 1. Just see what is happening here. I want you to see what is happening here. When someone goes to the hospital, what do? They infuse saline into the body. Come on. Don't let those things deceive you. Get the drip and look at what they are pumping into your body. It's the same sodium chloride that they are pumping, sodium chloride and water. I've gotten these things. See, when we say something, some people just think maybe we are just blabbing or we don't know what we are saying because maybe we didn't show a certification. Come on, our fathers of the whole, they didn't have the certification and they know how to deal with issues.